Okay.
So why did they want to do it?
Wait a second. Kumlan of Lag Gemara to Lag Baimer at Topshin Pei Aleph. We are up to that few tests Amid Aleph by the two dots towards the bottom of the Gemara. First, a quick word on Lag Baimer. One thing that always bothered me, if you look into the Prima Godim, in fact, when he goes through the different shittas of how we mourn during the Sfiras Aymed, the three shittas, which breaks down into four shittas, and he writes, Ula yesh tam acher, why on Lag Baimer it's a little simcha. But Shmuel says that on Lag Baimer you have a little simcha, and doesn't say why you have a little simcha. The Taz says a little bit because that's when the Talmidim stopped dying. The Alter Rebbe says the reason why Lag Baimer is a Yom Tif, they don't mention about Reb Shimon Yochai. They say lefi sheboy b'yoyim poskulamus. And even though, because that's the day when the 24,000 Talmidim stopped dying, and even though they died on the 33rd day, mixla yom kekulei. Okay, so if you have a veilus the first hour, the first hour Lag Baimer, you shouldn't have a chasnas straight away, which is the problem how we do that. But the problem is that the only reason why they stopped dying on Lag Baimer is because there's no one left to die. What kind of simcha is that? In fact, it should be a fast day when it finally came to a totality that every single one of Rabbi Akiva's Talmidim died. You should make a halula, you can say simcha Shulchan said because Pascal Lamas. What does that even mean? And the 5 Talmidim Rabbi Akiva got, what Gemara says in Yevamos, was afterwards. He took a donkey, he went to the south, and he found these 5 Talmidim. So, what kind of simcha is Lag Baimer that Yom should Pascal Lahamis? Possibly, we know the Gemara says Makkah Talmid Shegola Goyli Rabbi Imad. A rabbi takes responsibility for the behavior of his Talmidim. And the question is, if 24,000 Talmidim Rabbi Akiva passed away, why wasn't Rabbi Akiva also included in that 24,000? It was his Talmidim. And that's the Simcha Tzas. It's a Simcha that's tempered with sadness because 24,000 Talmidim passed away, but it's a Simcha is that Rabbi Akiva remained, it wasn't punished, so that he was able to find new 5 Talmidim, Reb Meir, Reb Shimon, and so on, so that the Yehuda, so that they can bring continue the Shalshelis of Teda and Meseda. So that's the Simcha of Lag Baimer in Shulchan Aruch. Now, yesterday we left off with a couple of questions. Yemi asked yesterday a very nice question. He said, "How can the Kohen Rashi? When it says that the Kohen Gadol wakes in the morning, he's Meisach Haraglov." We translated, that he had to take care of his needs on the street, but it means he has to go to the bathroom. And Rashi brings when the Kohen goes to the bathroom, you have to then go to the mikveh before he does his avodah. So Yemi asked, how can he walk through the Beis Hamikdash before he went to the mikveh? If he's on the one side of the room, the parhedron, he has to walk all the way to the other side of the Beis Hamikdash. And the other question that we asked was, what's the big tircha? Sachak, it's 135 amas at its extremes. And I think that one question answers the other. Because the kohen was tameh and he couldn't make a beeline from his room all the way to where the mikveh was, he had to go all outside the perimeter of the Beis Hamikdash, walk all around, and that became already a bit of a schlep, especially inside a mountain. It's much greater distance, and that was the Gemara's question. And the Gemara remains. Nevertheless, we don't mind having a tircha. The other thing is, one of the rooms, lishlas are called lishlas aparve. It says in the Shainim, and we'll see later, that aparve was some kind of magician, and he wanted to. He started digging holes under the Beis Hamikdash. He wanted to do excavation, or he wanted to see the Kohen Gadol. We're not so sure. Or he wanted to do certain things there. And the Chazal found him, according to Hananel, they actually killed him. And they called this chamber, maybe that's where they found him, they called the chamber after his name, which is a bit ironic that he was a Russia, and yet his name is immortalized by calling it Lishchas Beis Haparv. Anyhow, we are up to the Gemara that you test Amid Aleph. We are up to the 2 dots, 3 lines from the bottom. So they want to keep the Kohen Gadol awake the entire night so that he shouldn't fall asleep and possibly have a keri. Says the Gemara, the Amru Loi, 3 lines from the bottom. You test Allah. They said to him, "Ishi Kohen Gadol, our master Kohen Gadol." And they told him, "We are a shliach bezin, and you are our shliach and a shliach bezin, and we're making you swear that you're not a tzuki," and so on. Says the Gemara. Lema, the wording is that you represent us. So Lema, to have it to Yufta, it's a question of Rabbi Huna B'rei Yeshua. The Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Huna B'rei Yeshua said that Hani Kahani, there's a question. Kohanim, who do they serve? Are they representing the owners who brought the carbon, or are they representing the Eibishter. Yeah. So Rabbi Huna said it must be that Hani Kahani Shlucha the Rachmanin. It must be that the Kahani are Shluchim of the Eibishter. But the Amr Shlucha did done our Shluchim, they work for us. The rule is that a shliach cannot have more powers than the mishalech, the sender. Is there anything that not like remember? We cannot go into the base of Mikdash and do the avodah because we're not koinim. We're shluchei didon of this. So how can our agent, our proxy, do it on our behalf, and we ourselves cannot do it? So therefore, we said that he's a shliach of us, of the Eibishter, shluchei the Rachmanu. And here in the base in the Mishnah it says that we tell the Kohen Gadol that you are shlucheinu, that you're representing us. Kasha Rabbi Yeshua. Says the Gemara, no kasha at all. Why not? Hachikam, this is what they're telling him. Not that you are serving the base of Mikdash as our representatives. Mashbiin anu alecha, when we're going to make you swear, I want you to know that you're swearing al datenu. Because we're learning more shuas about people who swear, and the Bezin thinks that they're swearing about one thing, but when they make a shua, they're having in mind the other thing, about the king there with the money hidden in the stick, and so on. They have something else in mind. So we're telling you explicitly that you're going to swear exactly the way we think that you're going to, the intention, or our intention is, al datenu. And we want you to swear that you're not going to behave like it's al das bezin. Rashi says that what's enough minute they work for us or work for the Eibishter, who cares? The nafkamina is if a person made a vow that this kohen doesn't have any benefit from this kohen. So if he's our proxy, I'm benefiting from him, so he can't. But if he's serving Hashem, then even though he's working, shechting my carbon, he's not working for me, he's working for the Eibishter, and therefore it's all right. Taisha disagrees.
Would there be a difference in the outcome of this discussion?
No.
If it's the Eibishter,
I
gave my carbon.
But the Torah says that he rules it. The Torah says if you have pigul in mind, he rules the carbon. Doesn't matter whose fault it is. No one can blame you.
No, I'm saying which side of the equation.
But he passed on the carbon. What's the difference? Who? The fact that the carbon is possible, he didn't bring it up. Torah says there cannot be enough min halacha because Torah says even if it's kohen the Rachmanin and shluch the Rachmanin, the Eibishter represented, the fact is I'm benefiting from him because he's doing a carbon for me. Not like Rashi said that's not called a benefit. And then Torah has an interesting question here. So how come the Gemara and the daughter? Now that the Gemara and the daughter, when asked the question, these kohenim are they our shluchim or the Eibishter shluchim, and the Gemara is a boy of a leif should have resolved, and the Gemara there does not bring it up with Eibishter from the Gemara Kedushin. Why don't you bring it? He clearly resolves it. He says, "Hani kohen shlucha the Rachmaninu." So why? So somebody's trying to say we have sometimes, many times the Gemara in one place the Gemara remains unresolved, and another sugya, the very same question has been resolved. And the different yeshivas, different periods, and the Gemara recorded them both. That's how some Rishonim answer. Other Rishonim answer, there's a difference. The Gemara is a difference between the Gemara and the Durham is talking about when the Kohenim are representing other Kohenim. There's a Kohen who brought the carbon to the base of Mikdash. So, Rabbi Huna Brei Rabbi Shua is the Gemara and the Durham is talking about where the Kohen is representing another Kohen. And therefore, Rabbi Huna ben Yeshua only works if Yisrael is the one who's bringing the carbon. Then if we don't have the capacity to bring the carbon, how can the Kohen do it? So therefore, clearly, Rachman, the question is, if a Kohen brings the carbon to the base of Mikdash, and another Kohen, and he could have done it, but another Kohen is doing it. And the question is that Kohen representing the Eibishter or him? And after minutes, like Rashi says, are you allowed to have benefit for him or not? That's what other people answer. Okay. Traces has a whole other pshat. He says Rabbi Huna Brei Rabbi Yeshua was not saying that exclusively. He was not saying that I've exclusively shlucha didon shlucha d'rachmana. What he was saying was that he's definitely shlucha d'rachmana. The question is he also? The Gemara in Adarim says that now that we know who to make sure that he's shlucha d'rachmana, but could be he's also shlucha didon, or is it only exclusively shlucha d'rachmana? That's the Gemara's question there. Not is he mutually exclusive? That we should already proved. If we can't do it, how can the Shai do it for us? But the question is he is it the us and the Eibishter together, or how's it work, or just the Eibishter himself? Yes.
Isn't it in the whole parsha of the Chavdal Matnas Gehuna? The Eibishter says, "I'm putting this duty on you. You have to guard the base of Mikdash. In return, Am Yisrael has to give you all these matanas."
No.
So the Rebbeinu Shem, as it were, is giving him the job of being the guard of the base of Mikdash, but we're the ones who have to pay for it.
True. In fact, we have expression Meshuchim Gavoya Kazachu, And according to some Rishonim, we have Marbella, Taisus, and others, that everything, even the parts that the kohen can eat, everything, everything else is Meshulchan Gavai Gazachu, but that has nothing to do with when they're doing the shchita. And who are they representing? Us or the Eibishter? It says in some Rishonim that when you say Bichas Koinim and you say Aaron Rabban of Koinim Am Kedushecha Kamer, they say there's two gesois. There's Koy Hanecha or Hakoy. Sorry, Aaron Rabban of Koyanim Am Kedushecha Kamer or Aaron Rabban of Hakoyanim, because they argue when you say Aaron Rabban of Koyanim Am Kedushecha Kamer, it really means they are the Koyanim of the Am Kedushecha. They are our representatives, and the Gemara remains the boy leaves to. Or Rav Huna says definitely Shulchan Rachmana. So they say it should say HaKoinim. Aaron Rabban of HaKoinim, they're the Koinim. Kama. Am Kedushecha, they're a holy nation. Ka'amu, like we just said. But it must be because our nusach is just Koinim. It must be that even though it says Koinim, we're not saying that they are Koinim of Am Kedushecha, that they are representatives of their priests for us. We must still say put a Kama after Koinim, that the Koinim goes on Aaron Rabban of Koinim, Kama, even though they had just as Koinim, and then Am Kedushecha Kamer. So that's why we broke it up. The Chazan says Koinim, and not an others the people will say Am Kedushecha Kamer. So we broke. You have to break it up so that the Koinim refer to Aaron Rabbanov, they're the Koinim, and then Am Kedushecha Kamer, they're a holy nation. So instead of otherwise, if you put Koinim Am Kedushecha Kamer together, it sounds like the Koinim are representative of the Am Kedushecha, which is not according to the halach. Anyway, takes the answer of here. The reason why the Gemara in the Dharm doesn't bring up Yeshua is because they're looking for Mishnah Brisa, not an Amoidah. They could have answered themselves. They just wanted a basis in the Mishnah and the Brisa. Says Gemara further. After the maiden swear, who paid the he steps aside and he cries. And they step aside and they cry. Who paid the why is he crying? They allege that he was a tzduki. The fact that I can even allege that bothered him. The Hain Poish and the why do they separate? Accusing somebody of something which isn't true, you can even get punished. Sorry, and Raya from Moshe Rabbeinu, and he accused him of not believing in him. So even though they're not Chaysh Hashem, that's the law. But they're saying, look at look at what we're doing, and look what the law is making us do, and they're very uncomfortable. The Kolkach Lama, why did they go the way? They believe when it says that you have to put the coal. You have the coal in one hand and you have the chafina, the potatoes in the other hand. They believe you're supposed to put the potatoes on the coal before you go into the Kodesh Kodashim, because kiba on an eira. When you walk in, exactly, you should bring in the smoke, so it's burning. We say it says in Pasuk that you should do it in the Kodesh Kodashim. So he doesn't do it outside; he does it in the Kodesh Kodashim. So that's when they make him swear, do it our way. So let me learn. And Moro tells a story, actually telling a story similar to Maisa. Maisa ben Zduki he prepared the potatoes on the outside, and he entered. Simply that he was so proud that he defeated the Rabbanon. Poga by others, his father met him. Yes, I'm on your side. You got to be careful of these Purushim. They're the cheres to them, and you have to be scared for your life because they can punish you. So he said to him, this is like using the lashonos of other Tanoim. My whole life, I was in pain. When am I going to be able to fulfill this posting that we believe represents us? Marty, I said, the reason why I took the job is so that I can go ahead and do my thing. Finally, I'm the Kohen God, and I'm in a position to carry out our interpretation. I shouldn't make it. Amru, they say, only a few days went by. Ad Shemes, he died. He was tossed into a tip. That there were worms coming out of his nose. Now, others say that when he went out, Nigev, he got a plague and he died. It turned Abchia. And Abchia said, they all heard a voice in Nazara. Shabon Malach upon it. A Malach came and smacked him on his face. And his brethren, the Koyim, came into the Azara. They found like a round footprint, being safe between the shoulders. And it says, their legs are straight, but the bottom of their legs, like a round foot. Pulled the heart to understand it. They heard a smack in his face. Why did they find a footmark?
his back.
on his back, unless there were two events that happened.
He's facing the floor.
Now, Rashi says, why was he punished with his nose? So Rashi says, because the nose is the first part of the body that goes in. Just like when you leave, the last part is the last part is the back of your head that leaves. So the same thing is if you're walking out backwards, let's say, or your nose is the last part when you're walking out. So therefore, if you're walking into a leprosy house backwards, and the thing is, if the entire body is there, if you walked into a house backwards, it's a house in Menuga. If your tower house is there and your nose is sticking out, it's still tired. Amma, what was he from here? So Rashi says that the nose is the part that butts out the mouth, just out the mouth. So the same thing when you walk in, the first part that walked into the Kodesh Kodashim with the nose, that's why he got punished. The other Hashems agree, they say he got punished because the nose smells the Ketores and therefore got punished. But Rashi is difficult to understand. You've got to find a pshat here because when you actually walk into a room, the nose is not the first part that walks in. Your foot, your leg. How do you walk into the room without moving your right foot first? Kederech biyasa. You remember having murder by Beisach. Your foot comes in first. Unless Rashi is saying within the head, which part of the head? Because the head has made the decision to walk in. So we're going to punish the head. And which part of the head is the nose? That's right. So the nose. That's what Rashi means. Okay. The Rishami already asked, how is it? That's right. Yeah. Exactly. The Rishami asked, how is there an Ish in Kodesh Kodashim? No one's allowed to be. Says no one's allowed to be there. Even a Ish, a Malach is called an Ish. So our Gemara clearly says that it happened outside. In our Gemara's version, when did the Malach kick him? Only in the chat that he went outside of the Kodesh Kodashim and they found that he died. So therefore, it's no problem. It wasn't in the Kodesh Kodashim. And if he followed Kodesh Kodashim, it was his nose, no Malach there. But according to the Shami, it wasn't really a Malach. It was like a vision that he had of Shechina in the room. And we'll see later in the Gemara about Shimon Tzaddik. We'll see later in the Flama test. Says he further. Rabbi Chaim said, "Ben Kavuto, Master Rabbi Chaim Rabbi Lachia." Rabbi Chaim Whittle says that he was up all night for learning Daniel with the Kohen God. Master Rabbi Chaim Rabbi Lachia, but Rabbi Chanan Bar Rabbi was teaching Rav Son Chia. Rav Son Chia was amazing because he had the most extraordinary tutors. We've had a number of times in Aid and other places that somebody was teaching Chia Barav. But interesting is, Rav never trusted any of these tutors because every time they were learning, he happened to sit there. And he always had to mix in. Rav, and the teacher, and Chanan Barav used the expression ben kifuta with a fey. Rav demonstrated with his hand, kivuta with a vase. Says he might have a name, why does he make a remez? He should have told him it's a vase. But you might have Krishma have a kari. Rab was reading Krishma, and therefore he couldn't turn me mafsik. Says he might know if you know Krishma, the Chagadam Yishad is allowed in the motion. If you're reading Shema, lo yirma is be'enav, do not indicate your eyes. But lo yikra is besvasav, and nor should you move your lips there, try to say something even though you're not saying. But lo yoyda besvasav, don't point with your finger. But Tanya Rabbaleza Chismoim and Hakodesh Shema. If somebody reads Shema, Maram is Beinav and hints with his eyes, and Mekaded his face and he moves his lips, puckers his lips, so Marev is Bayu, point to the finger, all of our Kosav Oimer regarding this person. The Taylor first name, Loisi Korasa Yaakov. You weren't talking to me, you weren't talking to me at all, because you're busy with other things, you're so easily distracted. Like Kasha, it's not a problem. Habbe Peregrishan, Habbe Perishani. Here's the first pairing. This is the second pairing. In other words, Bahafta you shouldn't make it a Muslim, and Yishmaya because Bahafta you have to have kavanah, and Yishmaya you could. Others Shayim hold, and according to the halacha, which is only that we pass only Shema Yisrael you need. We had a lot of opinion in brachas, but only Shema Yisrael you kavanah. Then maybe this din of not making them is only by Shema Yisrael, not from the rest. It says about further. Tell them what we learned. With the Barta bomb, it says in the pasuk. With the Barta bomb, you should talk in there. What do you mean with the Barta bomb? That's exactly right. This is how Gemara works. Bom v'loy b'tefillah. Them, but not during davening. What do you mean? That when should you have to hear your words? You should speak and hear it only by Krishna. By davening, you should hear words. So Rashi holds that by Shvanesa, you should be so quiet that you yourself should not hear what you have to say. Other Rishonim totally disagree. They say by Shvanesa and halacha shmalachis. Shvanesa, you still have to hear even though you're quiet. Shouldn't disturb the next one. In fact, Soloveitchik has a very interesting chakira. Rabbi Yosheber, JB Soloveitchik has a very interesting chakira. If somebody is saying Shvanesa to themselves quietly and you're walking by and you heard it, you have to answer Amen when he finishes the bracha. Very interesting chakira. And the basic chakira is because the Shema says you have to be quiet, which means you shouldn't interfere with anybody else. You should say quietly. But since in a way it's like an Aveda, do you answer Amen on a bracha that was said in a way of an Aveda? And it's a very interesting chakira goes into it. So here, Rashi holds it's Taka Aveda. You should be quiet, not saying anything. Other Shema, you have to hear what you're saying. And the Shonim Kippur, we have Shonach Machlekes if you're allowed to say it loud, with Ma'odah Kavana and all that. Others, if learn as a result, they disagree with Rashi. So what is the limit about the bomb that you're allowed to be mafsik and krishma for the covered or for yida? If somebody comes and approaches you and answer, you're says shemalechi, you're allowed to answer back, or if you're scared of the person who walked in, you're allowed to say something. But shvanessa, irrelevant. You're never allowed to say anything. Or regarding Mar Shabbos, we had if you're mafsik, you're tater. For krishma, you're mafsik, you're tater. For tefillah, you're not mafsik tater. But about to bump. You should say the word of Krishna, even though you're learning Torah, stop. But for Shvanessa, don't stop what you're doing in order to say Shvanessa. Then there's one Rishon who says that with the bar to bum, you should be Mayrich and say slowly your Krishna, but loy betfillah. Because Shvanessa, don't be Mayrich and tefillah. You should daven short because Manichin Chaya Olam Ba'oiskim B'Chaya Shah. That was that back then. That even said that changed. You should learn Torah. No, you should be learning Torah. Don't daven so long. Shvanessa is much longer than Krishna. Talking about it further, and then you're allowed to talk. Other things, even though the Gemara says the Rashi comes along and talks about all the time. It's talking about sichas yeladim or kalus reish, not stam. You want to talk about history or other things in Rashi? That's not a problem. It's only even talking about the things which are shtusim and all that kind of stuff. Other Rabbeinu Yein and Barachas disagree. Rabbi Choyme v'dibartabam asay oisin keva. That you should make words of Torah in a permanent way and not aray. If you speak about sichas chulin, ordinary stuff, you're over and say. It says again, Rashi, it's only kalus reish. So stamp one the way Tanya learns one of it means anything except learning. Rashi is not. It says God all these things that tire you, but a person shouldn't be talking to them. Saying my further, because it's not the Mishnah. The Kohen Gadol is becoming drowsy. The Kohen, the youngsters who are full of energy, they stand there and they snap their fingers. We'll soon see which fingers we're talking about. Ishi Kohen Gadol, Master Kohen Gadol. Amoy, stand up. The Hafeg Achas Alisba demonstrate to us, do a push-up, and we'll see in a minute what it is. On the ground, they occupy him, they keep him busy, they do all kinds of tricks and games. So that he's up until the time of Shchita. Second one I might say that what do you snap his fingers? Omar Rav Yehuda, Tzarasa the da. It's the tzara, it's the competition of the Mahi Goidel, the thumb. He demonstrated what snapping finger is, and it was a loud thing that resonated throughout the entire building. Rashi learns it means your index finger, but if you try to snap your index finger, it makes no noise. Tosfos learns it's your middle finger, which so how does Rashi? I guess if you practice and practice, you can, but still, you never have that much strength. Your middle finger is always stronger. Only if you know how to learn, remember? Yeah, but it gets tired from that. It's tired. Next. So the snapping your fingers. So interesting. In Shulchan Aruch it says in Hilchos Shabbos, you're not allowed to clap your hands on Shabbos because of Shemi Gzeda, Shemi Sakin play shir. You're not allowed to dance on Shabbos. And it says you're not allowed to be makir etzba achas al achas. You're not allowed to snap your fingers on Shabbos. We're not allowed to sing a song and snap your fingers to the tune. And the Ramah then says, the people are makel in all of these, but the Alter Rebbe says all of these means actually dancing and clapping your hands, not regarding the other things, not regarding snapping fingers, but clapping your hands. Says the Alter Rebbe, and that is because either mutav yeshayim yimazin, people don't listen anyway, or because today we don't even know how to fix musical instruments anyway, so the whole thing is not really shaykh. That's what the Ramah says. But the Magen Avraham says that you're not allowed to snap your finger to wake somebody up. You're not only music, you're not snap your finger, and others disagree. I remember Mishnah Berurah, I think, brings some others that says that you are allowed to snap the finger, or the other way around. Magen Avraham says that Allah doesn't talk about this, whether you're allowed to snap a finger not for music, but rather to make a noise to get somebody's attention, just to make a curl, whether you're allowed to or not allowed to. So, talking about it further, what do you mean hafig? Hafig means to either take away your drowsiness, or huffing means play around. I'm going to read something new. What is it? I'm going to say, show what Keda is. Now, if you remember having Mara Sukkah that Levi demonstrated Keda and he broke his thumb or his back, it became thigh. He dislocated his thigh. He became a limping person. Now, what exactly is Keda? Either the Rashi in Sukkah that says, if I remember correctly, that you're standing up and you're bending down, stoop all the way down to your legs, and you're putting two thumbs on two thumbs. Yeah. So the Gemara. They didn't involve them. They did not use one thing. They did not use musical instruments. Why? Because in Kippur, you shouldn't play musical instruments, even though it's only the Rabbanan, and we have a rule in Shvusim b'Migdash, but we also learned the different levels of Shvusim. So we didn't want to play music. Maybe also because Yom Kippur B'chal, it's a serene day. We put music in Yom Kippur. What they say? They said the following: Im Hashem lo yivne bayis. If the Abish is not interested in building Beis Hamikdash, you're wasting your time trying to build it. In other words, they said to him, make sure that you do everything according to the Abish. If you're doing your own thing, I guess again this is to do with the Shayla and the Slukim, it's worthless because you have to do the way the Abish wants. If Hashem leave the bayis, if you don't do the Abish's way, nothing's happening. So you want from the Chashva people, they also stayed up all night. They learned all night. So the Kohen Gadol will hear them shushkining over there, keep them up as well. So everybody worked very, very hard to keep the Kohen Gadol up. So what do we do on Shavuos by night? We want to stay up. We have to, yeah, exactly. You shouldn't fall asleep. Tanya Abishal says he's very busy. Abishal in this last few blocks. Big wool came. Now this is interesting. This is very interesting what he says there. Abba Shol says that you should know that not only were they up in Beis Hamikdash, but they were also up in the entire Yisrael. Zeichel Hamikdash. To remember what occurred in Beis Hamikdash. No bus. El Shayachaytin turned out to be became a night out for boys and girls, and they sinned and therefore it stopped. You're talking about the city of Nagdoi. So we see within the we're talking about even outside of Eretz Yisrael now. We're talking about Nagdoi. Usually Gvuli means Eretz Yisrael. He says no, outside. So what happened? Eliyahu said to Rabbi Yehuda Achud Rabbi Absalom. Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Yehuda Achud of the brother of Absalom. Amritu, you guys used to say, "Amai lost Mashiach." Well, listen to Gemara here. It's a powerful Gemara. You wonder why Mashiach hasn't come yet. You're always saying, "Where's Mashiach?" Today's Yom Kippur. The Evel Kama Psult Benadoi. They're up all night, these boys and these girls, and inevitably there's a lot of arroyas going on. What's the Abish's response? What's the Abish's response? Says the Gemara, the Abish defends the Yidden. Le Pesach Chatas Revis. What should I do? There's the Yetzer Hara that causes them to sin. Maybe that's why, even though Tesa says the reason why Yom Kippur and Mincha we read Parsha Arayos is because Yitzra Unzre, this is like most common Aveda. Maybe because of these incidents in time. Yeah, but on Yom Kippur Dafka. So maybe that's where it came from. Okay. So they meant well when they stayed up at night, but things went out of hand. So then he the Achua of Solach Chasida said Rabbi Yehuda, she said to Eliyahu, what's the Satan saying? So the Abish is defending us, but the Satan doesn't defend us. So what's his argument? The Satan can't say anything. So maybe that's why the boys and girls did what they knew that there's nobody there who's going to prosecute them. Why not? Why punch his day off on your kippur? The word has-satan is gematria tlas meya v'shisim about 364. How many days are there in the year? 365. And 364 days of the year he's busy. But the 55th day he's not. Have a class meya v'shisim about yom eastay v'shisim. 364 days a year he has a shus to prosecute us. But the yom you put on the day of Yom Kippur itself. Less later, Shusa La'astuni has no right to prosecute the Bnei Yisrael. It's very hard to understand because that's the solar year, and our Yom Tovim based on the lunar year. So how does Hasatan? Why are we using the Hasatan of 364 to tell us that he's not busy on Yom Kippur? The Abish himself was doing it, so he had an ally. The Abish was doing it. So Some say that the Satan on Yom Kippur is actually standing and defending us as well, because he cannot prosecute us. So the Shana is a prosecutor Yom Kippur. That's why Yom Kippur David chose to be Yom Kippur, because this is the best day that the Satan sort of is not so busy, so that David can can give us a good year. Okay, we'll continue in Mitzvah Shem with Shabbos. Should we continue at 7 o'clock?